Hello everyone and welcome back to Muddy Mint. Today we're going to be doing something super fun. My friend Belinda at Love Your SUDS sent me this tool. This is a custom soap shaper and it is made for a slab. So I'm going to show you exactly how to use this in my slab right here. And we're going to go through it in detail so that if you're interested in leveling up your soap making, you'll be able to use one of these to make some super cute designs. All right, so when I first got this tool from Belinda, I was a little bit intimidated, but it was super easy to put together. And it's sort of hard to tell exactly what's going on here, but I will show you how it works in the slab. There are basically two designs on this, and this is a cute little cat. They're cat ears. And so the idea here is that you put this in your slab. First you put batter in, of course, but this is just a demonstration. And then you run this along the top of your batter and it's going to create a design in your soap. So just like you would potentially pour half a slab of soap and then, make waves or something like that in that layer, this you can use in order to create an actual, really realistic shape. And we used to have one of these just for our Nurture soap molds, just our 5-pound molds. So it was just for a single loaf. Love Your SUDS, Belinda, she makes all kinds of soap shapers. This is the new one for the slabs, but she also makes them just for regular. I'm pointing over here because our loaf molds are here off camera. So you can use them in both loaf molds and in slab molds. So we're gonna run this along the top of our soap and then we're gonna take it out. And then what we're gonna do is pour our second layer. And what's gonna end up happening is we're gonna end up with little cat ears in our soap. I'm gonna show you what it looks like because I actually made this yesterday. And here are the little cat ears that I was talking about. And then Belinda also has this cute little face that you can stamp in here. Now I haven't stamped it yet just because the soap is still a little bit soft, so I wanna wait a few days before I stamp it. I'll probably wait a week or even 2, but I did stamp this guy right here. So this is a super cute little face and you can imagine the cat ears right here. So before I decided to dive in and make the soap, I did do a little bit of planning. What I did is I set my bar of soap in here. This is one of my bars that I made a little while ago. And I put the tool in just to see where, we'll put a little picture of this so you can actually see what's going on. But I'll put it this way, just to see where the little cat ears would hit on my soap. And so you can see that I probably have to pour a little bit more than half in order to get my cat ears where I want them to be. Now this tool is adjustable. I can send this down. There's these little screws here that you can undo, move this up and down. This is meant to be on the side of the slab. And again, this was custom made for me. So I sent Belinda the dimensions of my slab exactly, and she nailed it. I mean, the cat ears showed up exactly where they're supposed to be, and we cut this with a slab cutter. So this is a really well-made tool. It's going to work perfectly in your slab, provided that you give Belinda all the exact dimensions. So what I decided to do is, rather than just do half my soap, I'm gonna do a little bit more than half. And so today we're actually gonna be making our coconut and rose recipe. And we do have a video of the making of this recipe if you're interested in more details on how to make it. And that video actually has some scaling up tips as well. So that's our coconut and rose soap recipe. And what I decided to do is to make a batch and a half for the bottom. So these are gonna be, as you can see, tall bars. Compared to our regular bars, these are what we're gonna call our chunky cat soaps. So this one is garden mint, and today we're gonna make coconut rose. So we're gonna have a pink cat in here with a pink cat ears, and then we're gonna have a white top. And I am gonna put some rose petals on top as well. Now you might be wondering what this side is, and this is actually a second soap shaper. So it's actually a different design. It's still cats, and if I turn this around, and I would need to adjust this to be a little bit higher up here. but I can put this in and get twin cats, basically, or that's what I'm calling them. So this soap shaper tool came with the big cats, which is this guy right here. There's the ears, and then also the little cats. So if you make this one on this side, you actually get 2 little cat faces, which is super duper cute. So I'm gonna have to do that another day, but today I'm just gonna be making the big cat ears. We used to have a soap shaper from Belinda that was a mountain, and if you look at our Mountain Man soap recipe, you'll see that we have a perfect mountain in there, and that's one that she actually custom designed for us. And so she can basically make anything that you want, and it's actually pretty amazing. If you don't follow Belinda on Love Your Suds, definitely give her a follow. This is not a sponsored post by any means. I just love the work she does. I've been following Belinda for a long time, and she makes the most incredible soap. And she started making these soap shaper tools for herself, but then she started selling them as well, and they're very reasonably priced and work really, really well. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is start making my soap, and I'll show you what happens when we scrape the top of our batter with this. I'm super excited, and I'm also a little bit nervous. I've done it once before, and it went really well. I think the only thing that I would change is these ears are not super defined, and I think that's because I poured this green a little bit too soon. So this time I'm gonna pour the pink batter, and then I'm gonna wait a little bit and do the top afterwards. And the top is gonna be white. So we're gonna have a pink cat, a white top, and we're gonna have some rose petals up here. It's gonna be super pretty. All right, let me put some things away and then we'll get making. All right, so what I've got here is my oil mix, and I already have everything in here, my essential oils. And I did pick this particular soap on purpose, and the reason is that it sets up pretty quickly. So if you're gonna be making a shape inside your soap, just like if you're texturing the top of your soap, you want it to be fairly thick batter. Because if the batter is really thin, these cat ears are not gonna show up. So you want a thicker batter. You can either pour it and wait, which is perfectly acceptable. That's what I did with the Garden Mint soap. Or you can use a recipe that already kind of accelerates a little bit or is a little bit thicker, which is what I'm doing with this particular soap. All right, so our oils are at 90.5 degrees, which is great. And I did already pour my lye. Grab my gloves. And to warm it up, I just added a little bit of distilled water to it. I show how to do this in one of our videos, our oatmeal and aloe video. Right around the 2-minute mark, we talk about this in detail, just adding a little bit of water in here to warm up your lye water solution. So this is at 90, almost 90.5 as well, so very good. So I'm gonna make this batter, and then I'm also gonna make this batter because I'm pouring both at the same time into the bottom of the slab. If you're interested in knowing how we line the slab, we have a video on that too. Okay, here we go. All right, there's the first one. We have a little bit of a storm brewing outside, so it sounds a little ominous in here. Like I'm making a Halloween soap. All right, I'm gonna keep this very light because I have another bucket I need to make. And I know this batter accelerates quickly, and that's because of the geranium in here. We also have coconut milk in here, bergamot essential oil. All right. We do have this recipe for sale on our website if you're interested. Let me move this so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, 88.5 and 90. I'm trying to work quickly here. Because I don't want that batter next to me to set up too much. So this bar of soap is actually almost 7 ounces in weight, maybe 6.5 by the time it's cured. That's why we're gonna call it the chunky cat soap. Just because it's a chunky bar. All right. Now our batter is ready here. Nice batter. Hopefully is still fluid. Oh yeah, that looks good. Now I was talking to Belinda about this, about different strategies. You don't have to make extra soap. You can line up your cat to be, you know, in the right spot just for half your batter. And you don't have to make extra batter because I just decided that I wanted more headroom over the cat ears. So that's just a design decision that I made. All right, batter looks good. Whoops, a little bubbly there. I'm not very careful when I pour my batter in. Sometimes I like to get all the batter in there before I start scraping my buckets. So you'll see that when we actually run the scraper tool over top of this batter, that we are gonna have a little excess batter that's gonna have to come out of the mold. And a lot of people just reuse that batter. They just put it right back in their soap, which you absolutely can do. I'm actually gonna put mine in little molds probably. We'll see. Sometimes I like to do things on the fly. All right, there's our first bucket. Here's our second bucket. Even though we want this batter to be thick, I'm still gonna work quickly. All right, that looks good. All right, our batter is actually quite fluid still. Okay. I like to scrape my spatula like this, so it's good for me to keep a bucket nearby, I guess. All right, we got everything in the mold, and it's looking pretty liquid still. And, oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to put my little notches right here. And luckily, my batter is pretty fluid still, so I'm gonna do that, and then I'll be back. All right, I always call these notches. They're not really notches. They're just marks to mark off my loaves, because this is 4 loaves of soap. So that's why we're gonna get 4 little sets of cat ears in there. Let's see how our batter looks. Okay, oh yeah, it's setting up quite good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of what am I trying to say? I'm gonna get the cat ears, kind of move the batter in the area where the scraper tool is gonna go. This way it should help us avoid as much waste with the batter. And you'll see what I mean when I run the scraper tool through here. Okay. Yeah, this batter's setting up pretty good, which hopefully it's not setting up too much. All right. This kind of looks like a big mess, but I think you'll see what I'm trying to do in just a second. I'm basically bumping up the spots where the ears are gonna go. All right, so now you just set the tool in like this. And, oh, it's so satisfying. You just move it along. And you'll have a whole bunch of batter here on the one end, but you just push it back and forth. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a chunky soap situation here, which I'm not loving. That just has to do with my batter, not with the tool. But you can see what a beautiful line that makes. And then we've got this extra batter here on the end. So I'm going to scoop that out and put it in here. And you could reuse this batter, especially if it's fluid enough. I'm very new with this tool, so if you guys have used a tool like this before, you're like, what is she doing? All right, that feels like it looks pretty good. I do still have a little bit of excess batter, so let me get rid of that. With a tool like this, you're always gonna have a little excess batter. It's just how it works because you're not creating a flat top. All right. The other thing is that we always cut ends. So I feel like if there's a little bit of extra soap on the very end, that's okay with me. Like I might leave this extra bit of soap right there because I know I'm going to cut that end off. You basically just keep running it across until it looks really good to you. It's kind of amazing that you can make a shape in here. It's so cool. You can see the little cat ears sticking up. All right, I'm going to take a little bit more soap out of here. I'm kind of thinking I probably shouldn't have used such an accelerating batter for this, because I do kind of see a few little chunks in here, which I'm not sure why that's happening exactly. All right, I'm gonna do one more pass. Gonna leave a little bit on this end and a little bit on that end, because that's where my ends are. Oh man, you could just do this all day. I feel like I'm never getting it perfect enough, but at some point we have to stop, right? Okay. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is just let this sit. I'm probably actually going to let this sit for a full, oh my gosh, I keep wanting to do more. I just see a little lump right there that I didn't get rid of. Okay, that's good. It probably just fell off the scraper when I was coming over here to get the soap off. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to come back in about half an hour, and then we're going to pour the top on top of here. And that top is going to be white, so you'll be able to see the pink cat inside the soap. And in the meantime, I'm going to put this in another mold, and I'm going to do that off camera, but I'll show you when I come back. Okay, we are back. It's been about 25 minutes, and I feel like the soap is set up pretty well. And the reason we want it to be set up is so that when we pour over top of this design, that we don't wreck any of it. Because remember, these are our little cat ears. Here's a visual of what they're gonna look like when we cut. So we want the cat ears to be very crisp and very nice. So we don't want any of the batter to fall through and wreck the cat ears. And because I'm using a bucket and I don't have, you know, a spatula, this is just too heavy for me to hold with a spatula, then I basically just need to pour directly from here onto this. I actually might split my batch and pour it and hold a spatula. I think that's probably a better idea, so I think I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna grab a container for that. Okay, so I have a container with a handle, and I'm gonna use a spatula to break the fall of the batter when I pour it over top of that, and I think that's probably a better idea. So I'm gonna put that off to the side, and I'm gonna make this batter pretty thin if I can. And like I said before, this batter under here did get a little bit chunky, and I think it's just because the soap was setting up really quickly and I was moving it around and little chunks formed, but I think it's gonna look okay when we cut it. We'll see. It is what it is because I can't undo it now, but like I said, it has nothing to do with the tool, it's just with the consistency of my batter. I actually wanted to make this soap with our wild lavender recipe because that is a really good batter. It gets thick when it sits for a little bit, but it doesn't get chunky like this rose soap does. This one is just so hot because of the coconut milk, and it also has geranium, and so it just sets up super quick. But I think it's still gonna look really cute, especially once you add the little stamp. This little face makes all the difference, the little cat face. Okay. This is a much more complex soap than we usually make, but it's a very easy way to get a really cute design inside your bar. All right, that's about 91. And these are at 88. Always check the temperatures beforehand just to be on the safe side. All right, here we go. By the way, if you do try this soap with our coconut and rose recipe, I did double the amount of clay, of French pink clay or rose clay in the base. So that's why it looks a lot more pink. And I just wanted a little bit more contrast between the pink and the white, and that's why I did that. So if you like the way this pink looks, it is double of what we have in the recipe for the pink clay. All right. Okay, that feels pretty good, pretty liquidy, which I like. But as you know, it does set up quickly, so I have to work quickly. It's kind of the nature of making soap. So often have to work quickly. All right, here is my container. I'm gonna pour that right in there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to start by pouring between these little cat ears. And I'm going to try to do this fast because I don't want to have this batter over here get too thick. It still feels really good, so let's go. And this is what I mean by pouring over the spatula. That breaks the fall of the batter, which makes it a lot less likely to break through the cute little ears we just made. Belinda, by the way, has a lot of these different tools that are not just, you know, cute cats and stuff. She's got all kinds of really interesting designs, and a lot of them are for just regular loaves as well. And she can pretty much do anything you ask her to do, I think. Hopefully that's true, Belinda. Okay. I'm gonna do one more pass by holding the spatula. But once you do this a couple times, then the batter you have in there is really gonna break the fall So I think we're good after this. You don't really need to use a spatula anymore. I'm going to tamp this down a little bit. All right, and these are our chunky bars of soap. So they are going to be quite big. You'll see that the batter goes almost to the top of our mold. These molds were made by Troy, by the way. He made them by hand, and a lot of people ask us where we got them, but we made them. We do not have any information on how to make them, but we basically just wanted a specific size, and at the time, there were no slab molds of the size that we could find that matched the size that we wanted exactly. Because we wanted 4 nurture soap molds exactly. And so that's what this is. Now, however, there are some molds that you can get with silicone liners that are very similar in size, and I might get one day and just try it out, because that was one of our challenges when we were scaling up, is that we couldn't find the mold that we wanted. And luckily, Troy's a woodworker, so he was able to make them for us. But all right, that batter behaved very well. No chunks either. Soap making is always a surprise. That's why I was a little bit nervous to make this video, because you just never know how things are going to go. Not only have I not used a soap shaper tool before for slab mold, but I also haven't made a slab in quite a long time. I actually had to line the slab right before starting this video. Oops, see, I don't even remember how to do this. I like to put these sections at the back here because it's nice to hang on to tap the mold down. All right, that looks really good. Now I'm gonna do our texture and add the rose petals. In the other cat soap I made, I just made the top flat, but I thought it'd be fun to do something a little more fun here. I might not make the top as big as I normally do because I don't want to accidentally scoop down into these cat ears, you know? So I'm gonna make it pretty light texture, and then we'll do the rose petals. And this is what these little, what I call notches are for, just to show where the lobes are. And the reason I needed them earlier is because I wanted to sort of pre-mold the cat ears like you saw me doing. So that's why I ran off and added those on there. But that probably made my batter set up a little bit too much. So it's just a reminder to be prepared before you start making soap. Make sure you have everything on hand, that you've done everything you need to do. It's probably good to have a checklist. Okay. When we were in our production space, we made the same soaps over and over again. And so you kind of get in the rhythm and you don't typically forget anything because you're so used to doing it. But if you take a break from soap making, or, you know, like us, you're not making production soap anymore and you're kind of making newer batches or things you haven't done before, then definitely helps to have a checklist. Okay. Last one. Okay, we'll go this way, just really lightly. Okay, and finally we will add the rose petals on top. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but the reason that you need a different type of soap shaper for a slab rather than for a loaf, we found that when we were using our soap shaper for our Mountain Man bar, which was a single loaf soap shaper, wow, rose petals look really nice on white. I've never made a soap with a white top and rose petals. Anyway, the soap shaper does work in the slab mold, kind of, but it's just those sections in between the loaves that don't really work out very well. And so, plus you have to do, you know, 4 different passes and go back and forth. And I mean, we kind of made it work, but we felt like it was a lot of work. And so I told Belinda, if you ever make soap shaper for a slab, definitely let me know, because I would be very interested in trying it out. Because it's just a really easy and fun way to elevate your bar of soap. You know, it's kind of cool that there's a cat design throughout this entire slab. And when we cut these loaves, like I said, they line up perfectly with my cutter. And so the ears just ended up in exactly the right spots. All right. We are going to be doing a soap release in, gosh, I want to say in July. I'm going to tamp these down a little bit while I talk, with all of the soap that we made. So we'll have the Chunky Cat Garden Mint soap. We'll have this Chunky Cat Coconut Rose soap. We'll also have Orange and Bergamot, Aloe Spearmint, and a few other soaps that we made, like Golden Root for our YouTube channel. And I'll be making some more. I'll definitely be making lemongrass and calendula. That one has been requested many, many times, and probably a few more. We won't have a ton of soap available, but these ones will be fun because, like I said, they are way bigger than our normal bars of soap. And I'll show you. Here's our normal bar of soap, and here's our Chunky Cat. So there's basically, you know, a third or a quarter more soap in here than usual. And once we add, let me turn this around. There's our little cat. Isn't it cute? So we're going to be stamping this. You know, you can imagine the little cat face on this bar. Like I said, I'm waiting until this sets up a little bit more, because if you stamp something too early, you just don't get as good of a stamp, and sometimes you get like mushiness. Whereas this one I stamped, I mean, this bar has been curing for, I don't know, a couple months at least. And so I stamped it, and the stamp worked really great. It's getting rose petals on there. The stamp worked really, really great, even though it's a very old bar. So look at how crisp that stamp is. I just love it. So these soaps are going to look really cute with the little cat face added, even if the ears aren't perfect. And Belinda, if you have any advice on how to get my ears to be perfect, and this is probably just me because I'm impatient. I said I was going to wait half an hour before pouring on top of this, and I didn't. Although I did, you know, hold the spatula, which definitely helps a lot. And I did end up with a little bit of a chunky batter. So I would probably keep trying. And I'm also going to try the other side of the soap shaper to get some of those little twin cats in there as well. Anyway, I hope you found this video fun and helpful. If you're interested in getting a soap shaper, definitely check out Belinda's website. It is loveyoursuds.com, I believe. And like I said, she's got a ton of tools on there, and it's just a really fun way to do something new for your soap making. It'll be great for, you know, holiday designs or seasonal scents, things like that. And look out for our soap release, which is going to come out sometime in July. All right, thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.